Hey, welcome back to 2DG. We are not doing another beer review. This is a Let's Talk session.
We do these from time to time. They generally run a little long, and it's hit or miss when you guys watch them.
So crack open a beer.
I already did.
Sit down and join us. I'm doing a Bright with Nelson from Treehouse.
Same.
The topic for today's discussion is focused, man.
Multitasking is not his strong suit at the moment.
Okay. Beer Advocate, I tweeted this out, so if you didn't follow our Twitter, it's down in the description. You can follow us on there and get, some of these updates and stuff. But Beer Advocate recently published an article entitled "Strength in Numbers: Will Mergers Help Small Breweries Compete with Big Beer?" Now, initially I glossed over it because, we've beaten that to death about these big breweries buying up all these smaller, craft breweries. But I decided to go back and look at it, and it wasn't about that at all. It was actually about craft beer breweries buying other craft beer breweries, and that intrigued me. So I went back to read it, and there's some good points in there that I'd like to talk about.
But before we the dog. Before we get too into it, and I had skimmed over the article.
Damn, that's good.
I don't know that I got as far into it as he did, admittedly, but for me, when the headline says, "Will this help small beer fight big beer?" Maybe, but I think that the tactic that they're taking with the article, or what the question that they're asking, isn't correct. I believe that in order to fight big beer, which is a battle that truthfully you're never going to win. I mean, let's just, you look at it like that. You've been to Anheuser-Busch, you know how huge they are and their foothold or whatever. But for me, the strength in craft beer is numbers.
It is.
Being able to take over not the world, not the country, but your local towns. Get a reputation for creating killer stuff, a la Treehouse, and have people make homages to you. That to me is how I look at it, as it should be done.
Now, I just watched a Netflix documentary. It was like Craft in America or something, and it talks about a lot of this kind of stuff. But it was rather unique look at some of the industry, the culture, the jobs it creates, and they stated that probably 1 out of every 12 Americans, it was pretty much almost every American lives within 12 miles of a brewery. Now, I know a few people who don't, but they're rural, extremely rural. But that's an impressive thing when you think back 30 years ago when the landscape was dominated by a few mega brewers. And, now we're talking, 2,800 in America, I think.
I'd probably say it's north of that, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. I actually pulled up Indiana, and we have at least, I want to say, 20 brew pubs, breweries, whatever, in the pending status right now, to where, if those all come online, that's just incredible.
And Indiana was kind of lagging behind, not like Georgia or Missouri Texas. Texas had quite a few. But we were a little slower to grasp on. We had Floyd's, we had Sun King, we had Upland. There's some of the big names, but regardless.
Those are our regional breweries. Yeah. But no, in that documentary they talked about, there was 70,000 jobs in Texas alone or something like that. It was like tens of thousands of jobs in Texas that were brewery related. But they said out of all those jobs, less than 7/10 were actually big brewery. Mm-hmm. So, the craft beer scene creates tons of jobs.
And the reason being that a lot of the big guys don't have necessarily as many job creations is because they're really, really automated.
And a lot of it's scale too.
Right, and with the smaller guys, you're talking your nanos and some micros. 95% of the labor is done using just your hands and
right here.
It's right below you. Labor that way. Anyway, so before we get too off topic, let's talk about the brewery, at least at the article that this one is focused on in question.
Well, in fairness, they actually start out with a few examples. I don't want to quote their article. I don't want to, I'll put the link in the description. You can go read it for yourself. But, they talk about the one I knew about. Green Flash acquired Alpine. Now, they helped each other. Alpine Green Flash brewed some of Alpine stuff for them. And then they partnered, and then it was a full-on acquisition. So,
which is kind of cool because we did get some Alpine stuff in our
stuff I had.
Yeah, in our area. But if you watch any of Beer Geek Nation, he's a huge hater of Green Flash, admittedly, and from everything that I understand, at least for him, because we only get 2 beers here that I know of from them, at least in stores able to purchase. Their quality has gone significantly down if it's not brewed, because I believe they still let Alpine keep their facility.
Yeah, I think
so. So everything not brewed in the Alpine facility, from what I understand, is significantly less good than if they brewed in the Green Flash facility.
Now, the other example they used that really actually surprised me because I didn't know it, we had last year our Douchey Award, Best Beer on Camera, went to Prairie Artisan Ales. And according to this article, Oklahoma's Krebs Brewing Company, they purchased or in the process of purchasing Prairie Artisan Ales. And that, I admittedly don't have any experience with Krebs really, so, at all. But it concerns me what's going to happen with Prairie Artisan Ales. And it disappoints me a little bit too.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. The acquisition happened this year.
Well, I think they said it was announced in late June, so
right.
I don't even know if the purchase is all the way through yet. But.
Okay. So the reason that is surprising to me is they were already here, at least, in Oklahoma and Indiana. It's a pretty decent distance through some decently big areas, markets-wise.
Well, and they've been hitting places, too. I think they went out to the Extreme Beer Fest in February in Boston,
And I have never even seen anything. And we drove through Oklahoma, didn't we? No, we didn't hit Oklahoma, but we drove through the Plain States, granted we didn't really hit any liquor stores. But I've never seen anything from Krebs. Nothing.
I thought I saw something in a restaurant or something before, but maybe not.
I've never seen any of your beers on top-rated lists. I have seen Prairie Artisans.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, nothing.
Now, they claim that there's been very few operations change as a result of the acquisition. That's a plus. Now, admittedly, we've both commented that we don't think that Prairie, the bomb, is where it was the first time we had it. And I don't know if that's because, that the excitement and shock of that beer wore off. But, when we first had it, it was, I think, better than it is now.
Yeah.
We do have some held back, so we might have to do a side-by-side.
Quite a few, actually.
One of these days.
And I'd have to read more into Krebs to honestly see how much, number one, they did change, and number two, how good of a brewery they actually are. If they're one of the ones that made beer that was decent enough to get big, and then just went like that. There's a couple of them, like Atwater, I think, in around Detroit, that basically just got big fast, and that's, none of their stuff is that good, I don't think, but...
But this all brings us to the crux of the topic is we have now craft breweries buying other craft breweries. And for some, I can see the strategery, but when you're in Oklahoma...
G-dub.
I think that's an actual word. But when you have
either way,
an Oklahoma one buying an Oklahoma one, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you see some of these bigger names, Prairie Artisan being a good name, but some of these other names, and you're just shocked that the acquisition took place, and you're concerned about what it's going to do to their beers. Case in point, and the real focus, I think, on this story is Oskar Blues purchasing, the first one they purchased was, Prairie Brewing, but also Florida's Cigar City Brewery. Now that's the one that really floored me. We've not had Hanapu. Want Hanapu. Now I'm concerned. Am I going to get the real Hanapu?
I want to see how much change they go through as far as Staff changes, head brewer, all that good stuff. Which is the first one, Perrin. I'll admit I'd never heard of them.
No.
That one I didn't really care about that one as much. However, Cigar City, which if you're into beer, craft beer, I guarantee you've probably heard of Hanapu.
High Lie.
They're two big ones. High Lie's their flagship. Hanapu's their kind of like their Dark Lord Day release. I didn't understand that, and it didn't, from what I understand, get into too much detail on the thought process behind Cigar City. But they already had a foothold.
That's what
that one I didn't understand at all. They could have grown as big, I think, as they wanted to go.
Yeah.
So, beats me.
So... yeah, it really... And I think it was the Prairie Artisan acquisition. They weren't even going to use... Krebs wasn't even going to use the head brewmaster from Prairie Artisan anymore. He was going to be a figurehead, and he would do all the, speaking tours or whatever and promos. But is it really Prairie Artisan anymore when your head brewmaster, they make the case. You may have the recipe, but do you have the soul of it, that one really concerns me because I like Prairie Artisan ales. And Cigar City, I wanted it. I still want it. But that one concerns me as well.
Well, we had High Lie at Dark Lord Day.
Sorry, yeah. That's true.
Even I remember. And it was really good. It was solid. Now, we had it out of keg, which all hoppy beers, in my opinion, other than maybe Treehouse, are better out of the keg than any sort of, can or bottle.
Just so you know, I'd say it's even a little better out of the keg.
Yeah, well, that's true. Anyway, so, and it was good. So I have faith that they were making a solid product. Granted, they were one of those that had like a core amount. There's if you go to YouTube and type in Cigar City or whatever, they'll go on you get a tour video, and it was from years ago. But anyway, they go through the amount of beers they do. They do like a Helles Lager. They do a Wit. They do an IPA. Whatever. Classic staples. But Hanapu was their their main thing that really got them the name recognition. So to me, this kind of vilifies Oskar Blues.
Yeah, I agree.
And I like Oskar Blues. I like Dale's Pale Ale. I like that they started putting good beer in cans and kind of got rid of that stigma. Guys like The Alchemist or Treehouse or why can't Trillium? Those guys that started canning all their stuff. I think a lot of that has to do with Oskar Blues really paving the trail. But this is, I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't either. I don't understand. And I get it if you're trying to move into that market, but in the documentary I watched, I think it was Oskar Blues who was building a new place in Asheville, North Carolina. So it's not like they weren't going to be represented on the East Coast.
Well, they're in a number of states. I think there's only maybe a handful that they're not in.
No,
anyway.
I mean they were building a...
No,
well, yeah,
you're
saying the distribution.
Yes, it's not like they're gaining anything.
Yeah, I don't know what the premise of this is, and I hate that when I don't know something like that. But
did you see how they used?
Yes, I did. Anyway, it sidetracked me because I would like to.
Familiar.
Oh,
See that yeast chunk down there?
Good Lord.
Sorry, we're geeking a little bit on this, but that's okay.
I'm just thinking I want to culture it. So anyway,
don't drink it all.
So one of the things. No, there's a little bit in there.
Yeah, that's right.
According to Beer Advocate, one craft brewer who wanted to remain anonymous made what I consider a beautiful quote in the article, and I will go ahead and read it. It says, "Oskar Blues purchasing Cigar City isn't craft beer buying craft." He said it's an investment banker, or it's investment bankers buying craft. Now, I don't want to coin that or turn that phrase, but let that sink in for a minute. We all know that starting up a new brewery is tough to do without investment. There are some that do it, and I those are my real heroes.
I think the Three Floyds, was one of them that didn't really have much investment, which is why they're celebrating their 20th year. I believe it's next year or late this year.
That's going to be awesome.
And to put into perspective, Stone just celebrated their 20th, and you can see the size. Yeah. And the difference is they didn't really start out with investment money, which is why I think Nick Floyd probably has got a bunch of cash.
Well, he's smart, I think.
Yeah.
And then, especially in today's culture, and with the craft movement, I think that ties together real nice.
And Greg Cook, the owner of, or partial owner, or co-founder of Stone, has his brewery in Escondido, which is a restaurant. He's opening one in Richmond, Virginia, I think. And then they just opened Stone Berlin.
And he's opening a hotel in California.
Yeah, so the dude's got... Anyway, huge size difference.
And you can't fault either one. I mean, at least they produce a damn good beer.
Which I also understand in this article, Stone is actually starting essentially kind of like an investment firm.
I don't remember seeing that in this article.
I think it's towards the bottom. Maybe it's not in that one, but I remember seeing they're starting an investment type firm. I don't know if they're going to just do kind of what Dogfish had done, which is...
Right.
You just basically give us money as a loan. We don't let you buy a percentage of our business to keep. You buy it and then we pay the loan back and it's ours again. But
I think that's a great gesture on Stone's part too, is to invest in other people and their dreams, you know?
Well, that's what's cool about Stone is they're massive, but they didn't do a Green Flash. They didn't do an Oskar Blues. They didn't buy people. Because they know that that's how you become one of the giants. That's how you become a conglomerate.
Well,
you quit being creative. You quit caring about your product as much, and you're just like, how much can we get out? How much money can we get? How much people can we buy to make more money?
Yeah, and along that vein, in the documentary I watched on Netflix, apparently, when you were a startup, whatever your role was, your organization in St. Louis, it was just a given that, Anheuser didn't turn down requests for donations. They just didn't. AB handed money out to the community, supported the community like crazy. And you can't fault them for that. That's beautiful for them to do that. But in the meantime, they didn't focus on anything outside of the U.S. They wanted to be the king of beers in America, and they became that. And they focused on philanthropy and all this other great stuff.
And baseball. Busch Stadium.
And Busch Gardens, the amusement park. And lo and behold, they got taken over because they weren't doing international acquisitions. They got taken over in an international acquisition. And I know it was billed as a partnership, but they're acquired. They're owned.
AB or InBev had no reason to go into a partnership.
InBev took that company, and from what the way it sounded in this documentary is a lot of that philanthropy's gone now. They don't owe the community anything. What do they care? And that's what we're afraid of, I think, with the craft on craft acquisition. When you're taking something that was built local and people pour their heart and soul into what they do, and the community embraces them as family, and then some outsider comes in and grabs it up. I just don't know if that is something that will sustain craft beer in the long run.
Well, let's talk Sam Adams real quick. They're the biggest player in craft beer as far as revenue, how big they are, all that stuff. To my knowledge, I don't think they've actively bought anyone, right? I don't
know, because they do have some of those that they brew like contract almost.
Right, but that's not.
No, I don't know if they bought that or if they.
And they don't get me wrong. They do have subsidiary companies like Angry Orchard, for instance, is the Boston Beer Company, or Sam Adams.
Where's it?
New Belgium is one of the other major players. They also, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, leave a comment down at the bottom. I don't believe they've bought anyone. And they're also one of the giants. Now, you get into some of the other big guys. For instance, Ballast Point. They were bought by Corona. Lagunitas, which was one of the highest selling companies as far as beer and stuff. I think they actually had the highest selling IPA in America, which Lagunitas IPA. They sold 50% of their business to Heineken. Founders even, they were in, it wasn't the United Brewers Association, but it was something like that, some Brewers Association, but they had 30% of their business bought. I want to say it was by a Spanish company,
Yeah,
and
I think so.
they were kicked out of that club or whatever it's called because they took big money.
Well, and it puts it at they have what caps and limitations. At least beer, BA has their standards for what a craft brewery can be, and I think is it 2 million or 6 million barrels.
I think that's stupid. I think a barrel limit's dumb.
Well, I think it's the only way to standardize. Now, the U.S. court system declared that all null and void. That's why I think BA is really standing by their definition, because the court system said, oh, sure, Blue Moon's a craft beer. All you got to do is call yourself a craft beer.
That's dumb, too, because Blue Moon's not even a real company. They never have been. Which we've covered that before. But for me, the big takeaway is you can't lose what made craft beer explode. What made people start to care. Which is local guys doing their stuff, making a lot better products than anything that was out on the market whatsoever. And now...
And community.
Yeah, and now... And I don't hate Oskar Blues. I like them. I'll continue to drink them. I've even started to love Founders a lot more. And all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're going to become massive just to be massive, which I feel like, honestly, this is what they intended to do. They wanted to get bigger. Because, like I said, and same with Lagunitas, they were across the entire country. They had no reason to get bought out. Lagunitas could have went around the world, same as Stone is doing, without any help. Yeah. They chose not to. They took the easy way out. So, for me, once you become big to be big, you've defeated the entire purpose of what you started your business for.
And that brings us back to the central argument about investors. When you have an investor, that's a shareholder. The only purpose of that shareholder, generally speaking, is to get a return on their investment. And if you aren't meeting growth patterns that they think you should and able to pay them back with the dividends that they expect, well, they're going to start placing demands on you. And if that's selling your soul, or whatever you want to call it, to someone, then, obviously, Anheuser-Busch could have fought off any. They had the cash reserves, the cash and the clout to fight off anything. But so at that point, it was shareholders who demanded the merger. So this is what's, hey, you can lose a lot of your character when you went from the all-American brand to a Swiss conglomerate or whatever they're from, I forget, but...
Well, I think I want to say they're Belgian.
Yeah.
But anyway, and one of the things too, like Lagunitas, for example, I honestly believe that in the next couple years, Heineken will buy at least 1% more, so they're the majority owners and then continue to buy, because in my opinion, once you start selling your business off, they don't want 30%, they don't want 49%, they don't want 50%, they want all of it, because that's how you make money.
Well, Kraft keeps denting hardcore lately too.
Every year.
I just saw an article, I think it was yesterday or today, that Kraft has actually exceeded domestic, well, that's another issue I don't want to, exceeded the big breweries in there, and I didn't honestly get to read the whole article, so I don't know what they've exceeded them in, but I think it's growth, year-over-year growth. But, when that happens, they're not going to just sit there and take it. They're going to go out and they're going to acquire everything they can. They're going to milk it as much as they can. And if it kills the industry, so what? They've got their core that's been here forever.
Well, that's the thing, too. When I was able to legally drink, I think Kraft was at a total market share of 5 to 8% total. Now I believe they're in the high teens, maybe at 20.
I think last I heard was 17 to 19%. So that's phenomenal. And that's old data.
It's insane growth. And...
the year over year is what's impressive.
Yeah,
it just keeps getting bigger.
They're not going to slow down. I don't believe it's a fad, which I think a lot of people thought it was going to be.
It's not a fad, and you can tell because you started with the wines and the foods, farm to table. That's the same thing. That's craft. We're talking about people who care where their products come from and how they're made and what they taste like. The quality of the product. America... is really getting into, so it's like we're developing an actual American culture finally. You have the French who have been around for 1,000 years and they've established themselves, and the Brits, and we're actually developing in a true American culture, and we're determining now what's important to us, and where it's always been mega industry, we've gotten screwed on that, and all our jobs are, gone overseas or wherever, and we've realized that corporations, these big corporations, really only care about lining their own pockets, and that's where the craft movement steps in, and they say, most of us don't even care. I just want to live and be happy and make a product that I can be proud of and that people want. And I think that's what's really exciting, the farmers markets and all that,
Well, not only that, but going back to percentage numbers, why that's important is big beer, Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors, which is SAB, which InBev bought a good substantial amount of, InBev, all that good stuff, and even across the world, they're hemorrhaging money. They're hemorrhaging profit. They're not getting as much anymore because every year they keep losing percentage in the marketplace. Even your grocery stores now, they have 3 aisles for the same crap, but they also have 1 aisle dedicated to good stuff. There's going to be more aggressive takeovers of the bigger names.
There will be a lot of pressure on those, and
that's where competition, because for as long as I have been into it, there hasn't been a competition per se. It's let me help you so we can both help each other.
Well, there has been the who can make the best beer thing, which is great.
That's great competition.
But it's not the, holy cow, so-and-so just sold out to a big brewery. We need to do something to fend off or to stay relevant, so let's go acquire our neighbor, I just feel that this competitive, they're trying to force corporate competitiveness onto the culture of craft beer, and we need to reject it wholeheartedly.
Which this is how
they remember why it started.
This is how beer died the first time. This is how we got to the 3 big guys plus Pabst
producing the same damn beer.
People kept getting bought out. Granted, we're not going to have the prohibition problem that killed off 80% of domesticated alcohol. But this is how it started. People started buying each other because, we're doing this much better.
It's the American way. You just get bigger and bigger.
Right.
Well, I think you'll find with a lot of craft, they're happy being a micro pub, or, they're happy serving their community, and we'd like to keep it.
So I always thought it'd be cool to open a brewery, become massive like Stone.
I agree. That'd be neat.
But now I don't want that.
I just want to survive. I want to live my life. And that's, I don't, what's your legacy? Well, you can't have much of a legacy anymore because of stupid tax codes. Whatever your opinion and political opinion is, that's your business, but the tax codes are corrupt in this country.
Whatever your, like you said, whatever your political preference is, you got to be tired of getting stolen from, right?
Why is it so hard to leave something to your children, Why is it that you have to incorporate for something to survive your death? And then...
So I think the big takeaway, or a question I think that we should ask, and maybe we'll get some comments this time. Think of it as homework if you've made it this far, is why are big craft breweries buying smaller breweries? Why is it a good thing? Why is it a bad thing? Or, what's the point, I guess? For me, there is no point other than to get big, and if that's your point, then you've quit caring about your product, in my opinion. Once you quit
and you're
caring
talking about craft on craft, right?
Craft on craft.
Okay.
I get Breckenridge being bought by AB InBev, Heineken, buying Lagunitas, Corona buying.
Yeah.
Yep. Ballast Point. Yeah. AB InBev buying Goose Island. I get all that. We know why they're doing it, but why are the good guys buying out more of the good guys, the smaller guys?
And I'd be completely fine with it if good guy 1 was cash flush and good guy 2 was struggling, and that was the only thing. That's what's going to save them.
Well, then you look at it as a loan. Yeah.
Well, but even if you acquire them, it lives, and I get that. It's the unknown reason. Why did Oskar Blues go after Cigar City? Maybe there's something to the story that we don't know. We'd love to find out and hear about it. But as it stands right now, it's concerning to me. I don't want to see some of these great names fade away or become what they weren't in the sake of somebody's growth and happiness. You know, I mean, I know that sounds callous, but
Well, it's a slippery slope, and the fact that the big guys are seeing it too, that craft is starting to eat each other.
yeah, and I think they're happy about that.
Yeah, and at that point, you've got a couple of big names that are kind of like the flagships across the board: Sam Adams, New Belgium, Oskar Blues, Stone, Dogfish Head. The guys that are basically everywhere you go. Well, how long until they start acquiring everyone? Because eventually, I think they're gonna plateau as far as taking over percentage points in the market. It happens. That doesn't mean though that you have to start buying out your competition. It doesn't.
No, I agree, because all you have to do is stand in a liquor store and watch that. Yeah, the big three might not be making as much growth as they were year over year, but they're not hurting. They're still selling. You just stand in the liquor store and watch people walk out with a dirty 30 of garbage.
Well, you get people that come in there and don't even look at anything. They're just like, boom, Bud Light, I know where it is, I know where I'm going, I'm grabbing that and leaving.
I saw a guy in the store the other day. He walked straight in, he stops at the end cap, and he looks at the cheap case of beer. And between that and the girls' butts down the aisle, that's all he looked at. He got what he wanted and left. I mean, never walk down this full-length aisle that's alcohol on both sides, and thank God at least has some craft options. Didn't even think about it. So the takeaway from this whole thing is that, well, really, we want to know what you think. What do you think about craft on craft? Craft buying craft. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What pitfalls do you see that maybe we didn't mention or even think about? What positives? I mean, it could come out that, hey, the guys that run Cigar City were just done. Look, we're just done. We're looking for a buyer, or we're done. We're going to shut down. Maybe that's what happened. We don't know. But, there could be a multitude of reasons there, but whatever it was, the offer was good enough that they sold.
Yeah.
So,
that's what's crazy too. And sorry, but I believe that Heineken bought half of Lagunitas for $1 billion. I want to say it was $1 billion.
I think it was only in the 30 million range.
No,
I think it was.
Well, fine. You go ahead and look it up. I think it was $1 billion. Regardless. I know Cigar City isn't anywhere near as big, but there's no way that Oskar Blues has that kind of cash. And I know that you said it was investment bankers doing it.
Well, not bankers, I'm just saying investors.
Right. And to me, that's shady in the fact that I know Oskar Blues can't have that much money, number one. Number two, I also don't believe Cigar City's reputation would let them undersell.
Oh, well, I'm sure they got a good market value plus some.
Right. So it's like, how did they get this money, I guess? I don't know. I don't know their books or numbers or anything like that, but to me, it's dangerous. I don't see a point other than getting big, and to me, that defeats the entire purpose of the movement, and it's dangerous.
I agree. I think it's a trend that I don't want to see continue, which is probably one of the first things I can say about craft beer as a movement as the whole. Is I don't want to see these acquisitions carry on. And I know that there's a huge portion of these startups that never make it, and some that fail just on their own. I know there was one in this state that recently went under, closed up, and it happens, I mean, I thought they would be around for a while because they were getting decent distribution.
Talking about 3 pints?
Yeah. But I know things happen, and if that's what it takes to save you, I can understand your rationale. And if your part of your negotiation is that you stay on and you run the company like it's always been run, I get it. That's fantastic. You did what you had to do. But just to sell out for the cash, I understand that too, but it's one of those things that I don't. That's the projected sales. I just don't understand. I don't understand. It's almost a betrayal of the movement at times, And I know that sounds stupid. The value of Lagunitas was about $1 billion, which is incredible for a craft brewery that isn't even in the top 3, I mean, of not top 3 craft breweries, of breweries in the country. Probably not even top 4 or 5. You think they're bigger than Yuengling and all that?
No, but I don't consider
Sam
Yuengling
Adams?
craft.
No, I'm saying breweries in general at that point.
Well, right. You obviously got the big 3. Pabst is just a name, but it's still a company.
Yeah, so they had $1 billion value, market value. And they came in with $200 million. No, that was the projected sales was $200 million. And, wow, yeah, they came in 800,000 barrels is what they produced in 2015. But anyway, Heineken came in and bought a 50% stake. Heineken? Yeah. For an undisclosed sum, so we really don't know. But
Well, it's probably around $500-600 million.
yeah, if it's 50% of a marketed, a value. So, but anyway, hey, this is getting really long. We need to wrap it up. We kind of put some things out there. I'm sure I'll think of things as soon as I turn this off that I should have mentioned. Oh, I'll tell you one that came from the documentary I watched, and it was a small brew pub, and somebody walks in and they're like, well, what do you got that's local? Well, all our stuff, What do you got that's domestic? I only buy domestic. Well, everything we make is domestic. You can't we made it there, we sell it here. That's as domestic as it gets. I thought that was a beautiful thing. And kudos to whoever it was that said that. And
Guessing
I'd
the guy
support
walked
that.
out.
No.
Really?
I'm sure they didn't, but it was an anecdote given by the
Right.
guy. But to round it up, I would like to go back to that documentary. The guy at the very end. If you watch the documentary on Netflix and you get to the credits, keep going. Right at the very end, I don't even remember the name of the brewery that guy runs out of California. But he's sitting there and he goes, "Hey, the big 3, it's getting cold for them." He said, "They're starting to feel the cold." He said, "You know how you know? Because the can shows you the mountains turn blue." It was beautiful, but hey. Check it out. Check out this article. It's in the description. Give a little rate on this video. Go ahead and subscribe because we're going to do this more. Not all the time, but we will do it more. And let us know what you think on the topic. I mean, is it a good thing, a bad thing? But that's all I've got.
See if we can get over a comment. A comment.
Maybe we're just crazy.
Yeah. Care too much, whatever.
But I'll tell you what we are. We're 2DG.
See
Thanks
ya.
for watching. See ya.